So, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the introductory and question answer session by of the Google Summer of Code that is being conducted by the Geek Haven Technical Society. Myself, Varun Tiwari. I am a third year undergraduate at Triple IT Labad from IT branch, and I was a Google Summer of Code student this year. I contributed as a student in ODKX. It was a sub-organization of Dial, and along with me are Manthan sir. I would like to welcome Manthan sir and Shivansh sir. Manthan sir had uh, contributed to Apache last year as a student, and he had mentored in the same organization this year. And Shivan sir uh, contributed as a student in 2019, and he had been mentoring for the past 2 years, including this year too. So let us begin. So why GSOC? Why should one uh, why should one do GSOC? So it it may be a major reason for many people that पैसा ही पैसा होगा. So it is a major reason, but seriously, why GSOC? You get a learning opportunity uh, to work under a lot of means you get an opportunity to learn the industry based working that too in your second year in a college only. So here are for a few of the basic points. You get to learn the professional design and architecture. You get to create open source software. You get to be a part of the community. You can build your skills and confidence and add valuable experience to your resume. And at the end, बहुत सारा swag. So GSOC, if you get to participate in GSOC, you get you get a lot of extra, what you would say, an extra edge over other people in terms of your resume. So, Manthan sir, Shivan sir, like to add anything?
Yeah. So I'll add a few points here. Like many of us usually start with GSOC are attracted to GSOC due to the money that it offers. But as you are participating, the one who is motivated by only money usually gets left behind because GSOC has much more to it to actually provide or motivate you to work. Like I have said a few minutes back, the main objective should be to like to work in an big organization, let's say, or to make some contributions that are valuable to, like it can be then used by someone you can't just like pre-assume or you can't just guess because an open source project has a lot of power to make impact. So that you get a chance to like work on a core open source project is like a great opportunity to have. So thinking that in mind, to make connections and to contribute to something that is important in the world, like that I think should be the main motivation that you should have. And Shivan sir can add to that.
Yeah, and one more thing, if you actually want to talk about the incentives is not actually the financial incentive that you get in. The incentive that you actually get is the huge code base that you're going to contribute upon, and the people who are you are going to work with. Like, so suppose if you are working in your college, right? So you are not working on a very huge project. Nobody has actually contributed to it except for you and your three close friends, right? So when you are working with somebody, like for example, I'll tell you, my mentor was Naman Dwivedi, and he created the official Android app of PM Office, right? So you can see the scale of people who you get to work with. They have like 10 to 15 years of relevant work experience. So whenever you are basically starting your journey in software development, you actually need to understand what are the dynamics of working into these kind of code bases, how to navigate to that into that code base, how to pinpoint some of the areas where you need to improve that, how to learn from other people, and that is what GSOC offers you. So yeah, so if you are talking about why GSOC, these are some of the main points that you should always consider.
Yeah, I'll also add regarding my mentor. So I was mentored by Michael Warburger. He had around 25 years of experience and was now is currently working in Google. So I remember the reviews that he did on my code base. When I'm working now in a company, I'm still using some of his reviews as a guidelines to write codes. I still remember some of his comments that he gave me, and I still remember them very clearly. And that thing that you get to work with people who are much better than you,
Uh,
think sir
you
has.
will see some. But is the way. I'm sorry, I think there was a lag. Yeah. I'm audible now.
yeah,
Yeah, you
Yeah.
yeah, you are audible.
Yeah. So I was saying that the reviews that Michael gave me over the 2 or 3 months are so valuable that I still use them as a write code, and I still remember them. And like these are the things that I think GSOC offers, and GSOC is not the only way to do it. Like you don't need to go through GSOC to contribute to open source, but like when you're integrated through GSOC, like you have a, I will say, a pathway to do a core project, and like a sort of a roadmap to start with open source, and that's really a good thing to have, and that's what GSOC will offer.
Yeah. I also I also remember what I did in this summer of code. That is uh, from the experience that I got this summer. I got means a lot of uh, for example, I was earlier working on my Android apps, and I did not know how to write the proper code. Means the styling and how did how how does the code get written in an industry-based application? I wasn't sure. But working with Google Summer of Code, I got the right way. I got the right means method to write the code. How well the code is written and well how the things that I was lacking earlier, all the things got improved in my this 2 months of Google Summer of Code. Yeah. So how does GSOC work? So this is the GSOC timeline. We see over here that the what actually happens is that the the Google opens applications for the organizations to start contributing for the organizations to start applying as an mentoring organization in the Google Summer of Code. It gets applied in uh, it gets open in the end of January and is open for almost 1 month, 20 days to 25 days. It gets it remains open, and after the organizations are finalized, the organizations are announced on in the first to the second week of March. And after the organizations are announced, so we get to know these all our organizations are going to participate in the Google Summer of Code. So the students who wish to participate, they can go on the website of Google and they can view the list of organizations that are applying. So and basically the tech stacks that they are going to use and the project ideas that they're going to use, the students see the all these things on the website of Google Summer of Code. And after that, in the last week of March, the student application period begins. So in this period, the student basically needs to submit a proposal for what work they are going to do in the organization where they are applying. And after they submit the proposal for in this 15 days, they get the 15 days is almost the time given to submit the proposal. After they submit the proposal, it takes around 1 month for the application for the proposals to get reviewed. And after the proposal gets reviewed, the students are announced in the mid of May. So, and after the students are announced, they get to start working with to bond with the community for around 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks. And after the community bonding period, the main coding period starts. So the main coding periods almost goes for around 2 months. And after 2 months, in between it has two evaluations, the mid evaluations and the final evaluations. And after the final evaluations, the results are announced. So basically, this is how the GSOC timeline works. This is how the GSOC works. Sir, you would like to add anything, Manthan sir?
Yeah, I would like to add something that this is the official timeline that you're going to see, but the journey when you want to target GSOC starts way early, right? When you don't actually have to wait till the application's open, right? Because if you get into the mindset of somebody who wants to select you, the main thing is that he or she has to know that you are familiar with his or her code base, right? Because there are only 2 or 3 months for you to contribute, and they are not going to spend a lot of time to make you get introduced to the code base, right? So like Ed mentioned, it's really important for you to actually contribute into the organization, to go through their projects and to get involved with the community. One mistake that a lot of people do are they create a PR, and then there is no communication. And when there is no communication, see, nobody is going to understand your caliber. Nobody is going to understand what you can bring into the table when you are getting selected. Right. So this is a fact, and this is a very harsh fact that the competition is very harsh when it comes to GSOC. And for that, your journey starts way before these timelines which are mentioned. So for my example, I started contributing to MeFOS in early December. Right. So there was that 4 month time period in which I was constantly contributing to all of the projects. I was constantly looking into the bugs I can solve. And these are not very huge bugs. These are just some baby steps that you have to slowly take to get more involved into the project. Manthan?
Yeah. So I'll answer this with a question that we have in chat by Siddharth. So he's asking about how can we get started with GSOC if we are only if you only know basic DSA. I think we have this in further in the PPT. But just to like a short motivation, so the open code is like a good place for you to start with now, since it is starting today. Like you can try contributing to the beginner issues in open source. In that way you can actually get like start with some development, web development or Android development, whatever you prefer, and that can be a good way to start right now. And as the open source ends like in a month, you can start looking at the organizations, maybe go to the MyForce projects that are there, and many other organizations that are in GSOC, and maybe start contributing to them from now. The initial motivation for contribution should be like contributing to open source and not GSOC. Maybe just try random open source organizations where you feel like contributing, where you're interested in, because that will keep you going.
So for means, as Shivansa said, GSOC, the competition at GSOC is quite tough. It is very, very hard. So am I capable enough for a a normal student who only knows DSA? Is he capable enough? While at the first point of time, initially would see that तुमसे ना हो पाएगा. But no, you are. These 3 points are the main points required for you to see that you are capable enough. You need to you find if you're able to find out questions where to go for help with technical questions, means if you have some doubt in a technical question and know where to go for help, Google or Stack Overflow or any other platform where you can get the answer of the technical questions. If you are able to access that, and we all can access that very easily. So yes, we are capable. You have access to a functioning computer 40 hours a week. So if you have an access to hours a week functioning computer, then you are capable, and you have got the experience using the programming language and the operating system of the project, then yes, you are capable. And many other times we see that people ask about things that we need to understand everything about the project. No, you do not need to understand everything about the project. You know the project code base line by line. No, you do not need that. You have 50 or more merge pull requests in the project. No, this is also not required. For example, for my case, my project was basically updating the authentication workflow and updating the user interface. But if you see the code base of the original application that I worked on, its code base had means huge many lines. It means thousands of lines, more than thousands of lines code it had. But the work that I had to do, it was focused on a particular part only. So I did not need to understand the other part of the project. I just need to understand what I need to work upon and what I would be doing. Only that thing I needed to understand. Shivan, Samanthan, sir.
Yeah, so like this is one of the most common questions that I get while talking about GSOC is like, how do I know and how should I start and am I capable enough or not? So yeah, as you already mentioned, these are the only things that are actually required. And one more thing that is required somehow, I'll say, is the dedication and your commitment towards open source. You have to realize that it's not a closed system, and you are going to get a lot of comments, you are going to get a lot of reviews, and that actually is the thing that is going to help you. So yeah, one more thing which is kind of connected to the question that was asked in the chat is, how do I start if I only know a basic competitive coding, right? So one thing which I always tell is, when you are building a project or when you are building a product or something, then in that case, actually language doesn't matter to that extent. If you already know how the flow of a product works, how you actually build a set of APIs, a front end application, then language is not a very big barrier for you. You can keep on building it, and in that process only you are going to learn it, right? So it's important to actually realize that whether that project is interesting for you, is for you or not. That is going to decide your capability, because if it is not interesting for you, then you won't have the motivation to actually contribute into it, right? So yeah, that is one thing that I want.
Manthan sir?
Yeah. So like I think I had some lag, so I did not listen to what both of you said. But I will just add a few things on the last point, to have like many PRs merged. So the main reason why like organization expects you to make some initial contribution is because they want to like uh, make sure you are the right person for the job that you are proposing to do, and they don't want to waste their precious slot that they got for the GSOC, right? So like so for that purpose you need to make some initial contributions, and they don't need to be called as initial contributions. Like they can, you can just be like contributing in general, like whatever issues you feel to solve. The main purpose of those contributions are, you make sure that organization feels that you're capable for the task that you are proposing, and if you are able to do that, it's enough. There is no like minimum number of PRs that you need to do. Even if you have some pull requests in some other projects which makes organization confident that you can do the task that you are saying, it's good enough. But usually it is advised that you make some initial contributions, and so that you get more involved in the community, you are aware of who the mentors are, etc.
So talking about GSOC, how to get started with GSOC. So it is a two-phase process. First of all, for those who are just beginning with open source or development in general, or those who just know competitive coding, first the task is to learn a tech stack. And after learning a tech stack, when you are comfortable with a tech stack, then the next phase is becoming a contributor. So, learning a tech stack, you can choose. Phase one is learning a tech stack. You may choose any of the tech stack that you are comfortable with or you are interested with. For example, many people learn like web development, or many people like app development. Some people like artificial intelligence or machine learning, and so on. Some many people like basic Java development, the using Swing APIs. So GSOC has projects in all the domains. The most popular are, of course, web development and app development, but GSOC has projects in all domains. They also has projects in mathematics too. So you can contribute with any you can contribute using any tech stack in Google Summer of Code. So first, you should try to commit every day. You must have a GitHub account for this purpose. You should be committing each and every day. Whatever work you do means, if you just update one line only or one file only, you should commit it and add it to your uh, repo. Means push it so that your contribution gets updated in the remote uh, repository. And you should put all your code on GitHub. That is all the code that you had earlier. You should put all of them on GitHub. For example, the top coder or code forces problems you had solved, your semester projects, your personal projects, list of books you read, the dot files or research paper, each and everything that you have worked upon, you should put it all on GitHub. And sir, you would like to add over anything?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So like
yeah.
the main purpose to use GitHub or get used to GitHub is like even if you're a great developer but you are not aware of using GitHub or making open source contributions, that will be like a huge roadblock to you. And initially, Git really seems to be like a little scary, but as you get used to it, like it's like uh, it's like in your muscle memory after that. So, like the purpose of making commits, the purpose of using GitHub is to you get familiar with what the open source conducts are, like making a pull request, committing, rebasing, uh, squashing, etc., etc. So all these are necessary because in open source, like the mentors will guide you to make correct contributions. But if you are like aware of like, but it is not like he cannot be like available for a very small problems that you face because the mentor or the one who's mentoring also has his own job to see many times. So you cannot expect him to answer every small doubt like what is a pull request. Some of those concepts you need to learn them by yourself, or maybe, and there are many resources available. The main purpose of phase one is to get acquainted with the different conducts that open source actually has. So the good way would be like through open code. Like here, the mentors are there for you and they're available like for even the simplest of the doubt that you may get. That is a good way to start with, and you will have like personal, like they will like tell you how to squash, how to maybe rebase, etc., etc. And this conducts that exist, the code quality, let's say, or maybe some of like having the right correct commit message is very important in open source because you don't know like after 10 years who is going to see your code, and it is very important that you write code in such a way that actually is reusable and in some sense like can be understood like what this commit does. So you should be able to do that, and you obviously will not be an expert in a day, but uh, maybe open code and maybe like through small practices you can get through it. It's just a roadblock, I will say, and not a cliff.
Yes.
Yeah, Shivansh.
Shivansan?
Yeah, I think you guys have covered most of the things. There is one question that I be a seasoned expert in in Git before GSOC? So no, you should just know how to do basic things like how to commit, how to open a pull request, how to resolve conflicts, and how to actually rebase, and all of the things that Manthan mentioned. So you don't need to actually understand how Git works and what are all of the intricacies of Git, but you of course need to know how to learn it because like yeah, nobody is going to help you in those small issues, and like it's of course going to be helpful to you only, like it's going to save your time and you will be able to contribute faster. Yeah, that's all.
And just to add, this is not important only in open source. When you will work in a company, let's say, there also you'll be using some sort either their own version of Git or maybe just GitHub. Like 70% of them probably will use GitHub. So it's like now or then. Like one time you have to learn this, so why not learn it quickly? Like when I had my intern, due to like GSOC and many other open source contributions, I did not had the initial blockade of getting over Git, which many of my colleague, like let's say other interns had, and that's why I was able to make contributions much faster, and like not I was not stuck with like some basic issues that exist. So this is the great advantage that you will have. Now again, GSOC is not necessary for learning Git or GitHub. This is completely independent of what GSOC is, but it is a good roadmap because GSOC will require them in some sense.
Yeah, and like just to share a very small consequence of not knowing GitHub, it's a personal consequence that I was contributing to one of the organizations when I was in my first year, and I created a PR, and it was around a change of 4,000 to 5,000 lines, and I messed up in resolving the merge conflicts, and till date that PR is open and nobody is helping me on in merging. So yeah, I messed up really bad, and all of the hard work that I did, like it was of no use. So you definitely need to have this skill before you start content.
Yes.
Yeah, well, you can.
So, and one more thing. So, basically, for learning a tech stack, the best thing is to start working on a side project. So, by learning on a side project, you would get the you would learn a lot about that language or the tech stack. So for in my case, I actually contributed in GSOC in native Android Java, Android development using Java. So I started working. How did I learn Java and how did I learn Android? Actually started working on a project uh, when I was learning Android development. So I started learning. I learned Android development just by working on a side project. I was making a chat application, right? And by working on that, I learned a lot. So the best way to learn about a tech stack is to start working on a side project. So, sir, would like to add anything?
Yeah, like definitely side project is one thing that you need to keep on doing to actually check your skills, to actually build on your skills and use them when you are working on a public project. And side projects are of course always like it feels really good to have projects of your own. They provide you the opportunity to learn a lot. The biggest thing that they provide is the opportunity for you to fail, because like of course it's a human nature that you don't want to screw it up when you are working with somebody or in some huge code base. So it gives you the opportunity to keep on trying new things, to keep on implementing new things, and then actually grow as a software engineer. So definitely this is one thing that you should do.
Yes. Manthan, sir?
Yeah. Uh, like I will just add one thing. So you can work on side project and also like participate in open code, or like that will also be like equally helpful to you.
Yeah. Yeah, we got a question also. I am a beginner and currently a fresher. So will OpenCode 21 help me to get start with open source? Yeah, definitely. Open source is for that only, for the people, for the students who didn't have any experience in open code or any development as such. So they will get a platform to start uh, their journey with the tech stack or with the open source. Open Code 21 would be a great platform for you to start it with it. So
Yeah. So
yes,
have we done any introduction to open code session with the juniors?
yes, we had an orientation session with Open Code a week back, and also have uploaded the video on the YouTube too.
Oh, okay, okay. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So I will. So since we are talking a little bit about open code, so I'll just add up 2 or 3 points. So like I got connected to Shivan sir and other seniors through open code when I worked under their projects. So I remember the first time I learned to like rebase a PR, rebase a commit, let's say, and many of the initial Git things that exist were in open code, and after that, I was like when I tried to contribute to GSOC or to organizations for GSOC, it was like much easier, and like the things I learned in open code were very helpful. And the first time I think I made a pull request to an external organization was in open code. So like it's not like in your case, I think the open code is a little late, but like 4 or 5 months late. But I think it is still like you still have ample amount of time to learn these things and then use those learnings for GSOC.
Yeah.
So coming to phase two, so this phase is basically the major competitive part of our journey to GSOC. This is basically about becoming a contributor to a particular organization. So the first thing that we need to hunt the project. We need to find a project that intersects with the skill set that you have and is interesting, intriguing enough to keep you engaged the next few months. So you need to basically search for or hunt for a project so that you can contribute uh, to that for the next few months. And sir, you would like to add anything?
Yeah, I'll say that this is one of the most difficult yet most interesting part of actually starting your journey in GSOC. You get the opportunity to go through a lot of projects. You see what exactly the world is working upon right now, and then you pick the projects that are interesting for you. So, for example, I shortlisted around 3 or 4 projects, which were from VFOS only, and a lot of were from Android because at that time I only knew how to build Android apps. So, what's written there is exactly you need to make sure that the project intersects with your skill set and is interesting enough for you to like keep you engaged for a lot of months. So, GSOC's official website is a great place to do that. You can go through all of the projects that were there in the event for last 2 3 years, and then see what is like lighting up your eyes.
Manthan sir?
Yeah. So for project hunting, like I think both of you covered like everything, and but I will just like emphasize again on the points that are interesting and intriguing, because if you are like if you see the impact that the project makes, then that it is much easier to be motivated for the project in the initial part, and the initial part is the hardest part. I think we'll cover that later.
Yeah. So I would like to add one more thing about how I started. I found my project. I started a bit late, and it is not at all advised if you want to participate in GSOC, or if you want your chances to uh, selection in GSOC, if you want it to be high, you should not probably form this step. But I actually started uh, finding the organizations after the list of organizations was announced. The day the organizations list was announced that was selected for GSOC, I started finding the organizations that were interested in native Android in March itself. And after I made a list of organizations that had Android related projects, and after shortlisting one of few of those projects, I introduced myself to one of those in all the organization that I uh, thought that would be the where I could contribute as a student in the Google Summer of Code. So yes, this was my way. The later thing that what I did, I would be covering it in the upcoming slides. So the criteria to select the correct organization or project. So we have made three points. Uh, the first point is the number of selections that the organization makes. The second point is the project you like. And the third point is the community you like. So basically, if you are trying to contribute to organizations, you should find one project that is based on P1, that is the number of selection that the org makes, and one project based on P2 and P3, the project you like and the community you like. This is because uh, P2 and P3, uh, it may be a chance that the project you like or the community you like, they may have less number of slots available. So there may be a lot of contributors that are contributing to that particular project, and but they have less slots, so your chances may be a little low. And for the organization that which where the number of selections are high, there may be a high chance that uh, you may get selected as a student. And for P1, that is the number of selections that organization makes, you can see the past records on the website of the Google Summer of Code. Sir, you would like to add anything?
Yeah, I'll just like add a few points. Why we thought of this segregations in P1, P2, and P3, and then doing this is because like many times what happens is some of the organizations, like there is a complicated process on how, like mainly it is depending upon how many application that an org gets, but there is a process how the GSOC decides on number of slots that it needs to give to the organization. If you see GSOC as a target, then maybe you should also do one of the project on P1, that is number of selections that an org makes, because it is relatively easier if the org gets multiple slots for its project, and you can prioritize the second project that is based on what you like and the community that you like, and you can prioritize it above, and then have a project. And it doesn't matter if the organization usually gets 1 slot, 2 slots, or 10 slots. Just like be very uh, that you can just go for that project as well. And usually what I have seen is like people usually keep 2 projects when they apply for GSOC. This is because like you uh, and maybe 3 projects before the organization list is displayed. And after the organization list is displayed, you select the top two and so I'll just go quickly through the timeline on how I like plan GSOC. So usually in December, before the organization list is already displayed, you can select 2 or 3 organizations based upon some of these priority criteria, and then contribute and like experience the community, because you have to work like 2 or 3 months with the organization. Maybe as you got to know with that you may be like connected to the community for months ahead or years and maybe decades. So based upon that, maybe you can select 2 or 3 organizations, and after the organization list is displayed. So what this means is Google also selects organization based on some of the criteria that it have, and the organization list is displayed. So if the organization is not listed in the list, you cannot apply for the organization, because for that particular year, the organization will not be able to participate in the GSOC for that year. Okay. So if the organization that you like is not part of the GSOC at that year for whatever reason, so that's why you initially had to select the organization, so that you have other options open as well. So then you can go with the top two that you have, and then make meaningful contributions to them. Don't go for like selecting 5 organizations and making contributions. Being focused, I think, is a better strategy when it comes to uh, going for GSOC. And if you are just looking to make meaningful contributions to open source and going from that some sort of ethical directions, maybe just go for the project that you like and the community that you like. Yeah, you answered it correctly.
Yeah, I think mostly all the points are covered. So you have to just make sure that you are working on something that you really like and that something is really interesting for you. And of course, you have to strategize when you are filling up your applications. And I think this is one of the best strategies that we all have followed.
So after you have selected the project or decided that yes, this is the project that I'm going to work on. So the next process is contacting the community, and the major point is that communication is the key to success over here. The more you communicate, the more you contact the community or the mentors, the more you get to know about the code base about the code base and what they're actually looking for in the GSOC projects. So, and it may happen that, for example, in my case too, I made a proposal, but and I sent it to review to the I was in constant contact with my mentors, and when I gave the when I sent my proposal for review, they suggested me some points that were not based on the design principles of uh, that organization that I had earlier suggested. So they suggested me to update those. So this is I was trying to say this only is because updating a contact being in contact with the community members is helps you a lot to and helps a lot to increase the chances for selection in GSOC. Uh, so whenever you get to know that this is the community that I'm going to work on, you find the IRC channels or the Gitter channel that they have. Most of them have Discord or the Slack channels or the Gitter channels, and you just go and introduce yourself that about to introduce yourself and start and the mentors or the community members they themselves let you know how to start contributing on a particular project or any of the things. And for any doubts, you can directly mail or ask on their IRC channels. These, sir, would like to add anything in the previous slide?
Yeah, like just putting more emphasis on the fact that this is the most important important, like the most important aspect when you are contributing to a project or when you are targeting for GSOC. Because when you are communicating with people who are already building on the project, see, always there are a set of expectations, and those expectations you have to fulfill, right? And even when you are working on a code base, you definitely have to understand what exactly is the purpose of that code. So that snippet of code itself is not going to teach you a lot. It's the communication that you get with the people who have written the code, the people who are maintaining the system, and the people who are expecting something out of you when you are joining as a contributor. So don't feel shy or don't feel underconfident. We all are beginners. We all are trying to learn something or the other from everybody. So yeah, just try to contribute, try to talk, and make sure that you are making everything clear, whatever you are thinking. That's all.
Manthan sir?
Yeah, nothing from my side.
Okay. So this was one of the questions that we had. Means, is there anything I can contribute to C? I only know C. This is not the correct way to introduce us. Means the mentors there expect you that you do your research in advance only, and you know the basic proper research of what you know, and then you go and ask the specific doubts only. So you should not post anything like I can contribute to with C. I only know C. Sir, would like to add anything over here?
Can you go to the next slide? I think there must be a structured message in the next
Yeah,
slide.
sir. So yes.
Yeah, so this is example of one of our seniors, Ravi Charan, and you just go through the way he has communicated with the mentor, and you will realize that you definitely have to build some context or some ground when you are talking to somebody, right? You can't just go and directly ask, "कि मेरे को करना है करवा दो जी सब." It's not like that, right? You have to pick some of the areas from their projects in which you are interested in. You have to show that you have done some research before asking the questions, and then of course when you both of you are on the same page, then the communication is going to be really really effective. When you ask generic general questions, the communication is not that effective, and the impression is also not that effective, right? So always do some research, always have some potential solutions or some potential areas that you specifically want to discuss with your members.
Yeah. Sir?
Yeah. So like Shivan sir covered everything. Just to summarize, when you are asking introduction is fine, but when you are asking doubts, make sure you have put enough efforts to that particular doubt or question that you had, and make the initial efforts like searching it on Google, having going through the documentation if there is, and then still if you're not able to ask the doubt, maybe first go through the mailing list that they have, and then maybe in the end also communicate to the any to contact anyone personal. So where can you find this ads channels or email list? So when the Google displays the organizations on that page itself, when you click on organization, you'll find a list of the channels where you can communicate. Usually it is a Slack channel, as Varun told, and you can just join them and introduce yourselves, and then maybe try participating in some of the conversations that they have.
Yes. So is another male, Miss Abhishek Sharma sir was one of our seniors. He contributed in design in Fedora, and this was the mail that he wrote to the organization. We need to follow a proper structure as how we are, what we want and what we actually want to know about from the community. When the mentor will see our mail, he should know that what he needs to exactly reply. And instead of here, if we write anything that I want to contribute to GSOC, I only know Java. So the mentor will ignore that message because there's a lot of competition uh, in GSOC. So the mentors will find it, will reply to those mails only that they think that are genuine. And so this was one of the type mails. This was another mail of our senior Pradeep sir.
Yeah, we'll mail you this slide, and you can go through all of the examples that
Okay.
are written here. And
Yeah.
but the basic summary of all of these examples is only that you have to make sure that the person in front of you knows what to talk about, right? Even
Yes.
if when you are giving your proposal for a review, you have to keep some points that, okay, this is the area which I feel like I can improve on. So can you like contribute? Can you like suggest me something, or something like that? Yeah. So you need to give him something to talk about also. That's when the communication is actually going to help you and him as well to understand what is your potential.
So this was my means. I had a question in the chat, that is how should what is the correct way of introduction? So this is the way I introduced myself on the Slack channel of the organization that I contributed in, and so you can all go through these slides. We will share the slides with you. So the points of entry. What are the points of entry if you start a contribution? So we have 7 points. So these are the 7 basic points that we have. So through which we can start contributing. We can first find a project that is open for new contributors. There are we can, if we do a research and find that there is a project that is open for new contributors, can uh, we can go through these. Or if we find a bug that we can fix that. We can find a tech stack that we are comfortable with, and we can find issues that are open and need help. We can find an organization that is friendly and going to participate for sure, or we introduce a new idea for the organization. And if we can't find a bug, just create one and fix it. But no, this is not at all. This is
Yeah,
not a joke.
seventh one is the key to success.
This is a joke. You should not take it seriously. Sir, would like to add anything? Manthan sir?
Yeah. So yeah, like the entry point for you is always going to be very small, and the entry point is never going to reflect that you are actually going to crack GSOC or you are going to get involved with that organization. But it's the entry point that's the most difficult part. Setting up the project in your local system is the biggest step. I still remember I was sitting in Pradeep sir's room and I was discussing कि project ही नहीं setup हो रहा, मैं आगे क्या करूँ? Okay, so that is the biggest step that you are actually going to take while working on GSOC. So finding that first issue is going to be really small. You can't expect that you are going to rewrite their whole system or implement something that is like blowing off their minds at your first go, right? So you have to pick those small areas of improvements that you can do, and then slowly you can build upon. As slowly as you get introduced to the community, you can introduce some new ideas that, okay, we can add something in this project as well. So these are the main point of entries that you need to pick.
Yes.
Yeah, like Shivanshu told that the most biggest barrier roadblock that you will see is like setting up the project on your local system. I took about a week, and Chirag was one of the GCI winner, helped me set it up. And don't give up while you set up the project. At that it might be the first time that you are setting up such a big project. You might need to install different versions of databases, or maybe having installing some particular version of Java, whatever it requires. Like it is like people are contributing to that project. That means people have set it up, and you can do it too. Just stick to it when you are trying to like set up the project. And trust me, it is like setting up the project and then making the first pull request will be the hardest part, and then the things will start getting easier when you are contributing.
Yes, so most projects they have a specific label for issue that is suited for beginners, and you get to know when you go on the issues that these issues are suited for beginners, beginner friendly issues. So you can look for the beginner friendly or the good first issues, and then start contributing from that. And as Manthan sir told, building the project and getting that first batch moved, it is the most difficult thing in the whole process. And after that, the things are very much, uh, the life is very much easy after that. Sir, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, I think we have covered, because naturally first steps are always really overwhelming, whether it is GSOC or any aspect of your life. So yeah, just don't shy away or don't feel scared while taking your first step. You can go wrong, but definitely you will finally get that entry point from which you are going to explore some other aspects of that code. So just pick anything and start learning about it.
Yes. And the most important thing is you have to stay strong and you have to keep patience in yourself that you will be able to do that. And this is the only the most difficult part. After that, it is very much easy to start contributing. So for that, you may choose any of the issue and spend 1 or 2 days on it. And after you solve the issue, you take time. You take a complete time in solving that first issue. And after you complete it, it will be much simpler for you to contribute further in the organization. And one does not try to read the entire code base. So this is a major point. Sir, would like to cover this?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you'll surely fail if you are trying to do this. Because the code bases are so huge and the code bases are so, like, there are so many different aspects inside that code base that it's not possible for you to start with that. What's possible for you, because see, when you are interacting with these code bases, right, these code bases are already very modular, and every set of file, every set of system has its own responsibilities. So you definitely have to pick one of those segments and start contributing instead of going and trying to understand everything. Yeah, Manthan, you were
Yeah. So what I'll say is it is important to understand the structure of project. Like if you are, let's say, working on an Angular project, then it's good to know like what is exactly the structure of projects is, what different folder contains, but not like what exactly do they contain, what code or what the logic of the code is. So in that way, you can just have an overview of the project and then focus on the part that you want to work on, and maybe just try to work over that part. Trying to understand the entire code base. First of all, it's not possible, and second, even if someone tried to do it, like he will take maybe a lot of time, like to understand each and everything that there is in project. So how I like to approach this is try to pick up an issue, let's say a beginner issue, and then focus on solving that issue. And maybe the file that is concerned with that issue, you can just take a go to that file, somehow search that file. Maybe for the first contribution, it's just a control F will do. I would say just anyhow, just get to the file that you need to edit and then search and just make the initial contribution. Later, you might need to understand the relation between files and, let's say, how the packages are built. But that the tree that slowly grows up, that you don't need to start from the top of the tree, but the bottom of the tree, and connecting slowly connecting different components. And you don't actually have to do it. As you make more contributions, you just get to know more things about the project, and that's how you approach it.
Open source is the ultimate referral. This line was quoted by Chris Devona, who is the director of open source at Google. So, being a part of open source is a great, is a great, what you would say, it would be a great experience for someone to be a part of the open source, and your code would be recognized. Means your code, you can go and say anywhere else that yes, I contributed on this code. This code belongs to me. You have the right to do in open source. So yes, and Google Summer of Code is probably one of the biggest programs of open source. So being selected as a Google Summer of Code student is a great uh, mm, what you would say achievement in someone's career. And, sir, you would like to add anything? It would be better.
Yeah. So like if you're applying for, let's say, and some of the internship for any of the placements of campus, it will be like helpful. uh, like like I would say that the open source contributions are like 1,000 times more valuable than a side project. The main reason for this is the side project. There is no way to verify that it's yours. First of all, that you have written that code, like it's not also in open source in some sense. But if you just try to look at an open source contribution where the person has made a contribution from his, let's say, GitHub ID, and he has a project uploaded on GitHub, the value of the open source contribution is much more, and the authenticity seems much more to the company, let's say, an organization, because the open source contribution adds many things to itself. Like you are able to use GitHub Git, then you are able to set up a large code base, you are able to communicate with with different people, then maybe you're able to like solve some of the initial git issues maybe, and you're able to understand the problem and then approach it. You're able to work on an existing project, and you don't need a project from scratch to start with, and hundreds of other advantages that there are. So open source contributions actually has a big impact when you have get into your professional life, and I can verify
Like
that now.
yeah, like there are some companies who specifically ask for your open source contributions. So like for example, I interned in Kochek, and in Kochek they were giving a huge emphasis to your open source contributions, like because the way they work, the way they are actually they have structured their organization kind of resembles the way open source works, and it's always about contributing and learning together. So you will find a lot of companies who give a lot of emphasis on this. So yeah, definitely it's a badge of honor for you when you are working with open source projects.
Yeah. And to add, I got the interview call at the company I'm with through my one of mainly through the open source contributions that I made.
Yeah, that's the story with everybody who is working with GSOC. Like it's one of the main topics of discussion whenever we are sitting in an interview or any kind of a discussion.
Yeah.
So yeah, these are the issues. These are linked to some of the issues that will help you get started as a beginner. And the first one is the most major one. That is open code is one of the best platforms for the students who want to participate in Google Summer of Code. Open Code will provide you a platform to learn the things, the basics of Git and GitHub, and the tech stack that you are interested in. It would help you a lot to learn. And if you would be after you would be able to contribute in Open Code, it would help you a lot in the contribution phase. You will be contributing to an organization, and we would share this slide so you would be able to access these issues, means these links. And we also have added the link to some of the proposals that we added when when we applied for the Google Summer of Code. So you'd be able to access all of them. So which project are you going to contribute to? Uh, so this is the end. Now we are open for question answer.
One of the questions that I see is, how do you know that the org is registered for GSOC that year? So like you can simply go to the IRC channel, or maybe any of their mailing list, and ask to them directly. That there is no problem in asking that, are you going to be uh, participating in GSOC the coming year? Usually before 2 or 3 months, I have seen organizations like put forward a plan for GSOC, like idea list, like Ed showed you for me for like how the idea list there is. In similar way, other organizations also has some of the typical plan on how they communicate about that. But if you're not finding anything and you're interested in that organization, then you can just go to their channel and just ask them if they are going to be a part over uh, in the coming year. Yeah, you can probably just unmute your mic and ask the questions now.
Okay, sure. Let me allow all of them to.
Yeah, they have the permission.
Yep, they have.
Yeah.
Okay.
Feel free to ask any kind of questions. We are happy to answer.
You can be informal, means we are just for seniors only.
Yeah, yeah. कोई question नहीं है.
There is a
Hello,
question.
sir.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sir,
Yeah.
there was a slide that you were mentioning, like in T3, that selecting a right community. What do you mean? Means right community refers to, like how we can know that?
So basically, right community is like, I think, is the community who which has the goal of actually making sure that everybody who is trying to contribute feels welcome. Everybody who is trying to contribute is getting enough context around the things that he or she wants to work upon, and like the community is active. So when you will start contributing, you will realize that a lot of communities are not active. The PRs are pending. There are no reviews going on in those projects. So you have to make sure that the community is active. They are not focusing on anything except for your talent and what you are bringing into the table. And then, yeah, finally, just sense the atmosphere of what kind of communication is going on. Are they actually trying to are trying to bring a change? Are they actually trying to ensure that the project somehow improves after the contribution period is over? So these are some of the things that you can keep in your mind while looking for the community.
Yeah. So like maybe the community in some sense also has like what, like I'm not sure if that includes, but like how the people in the organization thinks of their project, like what are their aims. So when I worked with Mifos and Apache, that they really have very high aims. Another, like the person you're point in contact with, maybe are you comfortable with him? Are you able to communicate your ideas to him, and are you able to have enough like some sense of interaction with him? Like my mentor was, again, just add Michael. I like still probably one of the most respected peoples in my life currently. Like he's like, when I first communicated him with him, he's like he had such a seamless communication with me that there was no doubt that I had to be a part of this organization, and I need to work with Michael further. So maybe it's not that like this in the initial stage, but you need to have some sort of a communication and uh, some sort of a like connection with the people there. Maybe it takes time to build, and that's why it's best to start early. Maybe try contributing, communicating with people, and trying to see like how you feel here, and how, will it be a good place to work for 3 or 4 months. And as you saw earlier, people usually may also stay for a decade there. So is that a good place for you to be in? And usually it goes better with time, so you don't need to make any assumptions in the initial phase. Maybe while you submit the final proposals, at time you can decide over that. And that's also fine.
Oh, we had one more question I have added in the chat. It was messaged to me privately. Sir, would like to go through it.
But if we are interested in a project but are unable to text time, yeah, so like this is a very fair question which a lot of us are actually confused about. So how I like to approach these kind of problems is you have to always take a hybrid approach. Right. So when you have encountered any kind of an issue, you definitely need to get some context around key how does that thing work from a tech point of view, but you don't have to become an expert before solving that problem, right? So suppose, for example, if there is a particular segment in Android that you will have to learn while solving that issue, in a mixed fashion, you have to kind of understand what you need to do inside that issue, as well as parallelly keep on looking into your resources to learn more about that thing. You can't expect ki you will build a side project on it, you will get to understand everything about it, and then only you are going to pick that issue. So going into the extremities of any kind of solution is bad. That's my personal opinion. You have to kind of like dance around a little bit.
Yeah, just to add, like if you learn to do this right now, and I'll give a, like I'm very sure it will also help you when you join any company for a professional endeavors. Since there also you won't actually know what project, what language they are using, and what project that they have, and you have to start with both of them in the initial phase. So why not, like yeah, everyone has to do it at one time, right? So be it open source, be it any professional career. So learning it in open source and then improving is like a good choice. Learning
Yeah,
it,
also.
yeah, sorry,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
no, nothing.
Yeah, like one more thing is that tech stack might change, but the basic approach of building that particular thing doesn't change much unless you are talking about something very specific. So if you're talking about building the APIs, if you have already built it using Kotlin or something, then you won't face a lot of problems while building it with, for say, Flask, right? Because all you have to do is just get to know a little bit about what are the intricacies of the language, and then you definitely know the flow and what things you need to look into. So that should not be a very big issue.
Yes, sir. So we have one more question. Should I focus on development, which I am doing from past 3 months, to learn DSA, then focus over dev? I'm in second year and working in Django. So what would be a better approach over there?
Manthan, you should answer this. There is other question.
Yeah. So just to make it very clear, DSA, uh, uh, the value of DSA as I see in open source is, like, to be honest, quite less. Nobody cares about how good you are in DSA unless you're working on some of the algorithms part of, like, I remember, I think Ravi Charan sir worked on some of the algorithms part of one of these projects where the good DSA skills were required. But for most skills, you should have enough knowledge of DSA as a computer science engineer, which is like a base knowledge required. But you don't need to be a master at code for something that is not expected over here. I'm sorry, I missed the question.
Let me.
Yeah. So should I focus on development, which I mean, or past 3 months or learn DSA, then focus on dev? Yeah. So as I told you, the basic knowledge of DSA is good to have, like must have. Like if you are coding, you should be like have some initial knowledge, like what exactly a queue is, a stack is, what are the basic uses of this, what a map is. But you don't need to be like expert in writing or login solutions in some of the complicated problems. Usually the problems are much simpler in open source when you are trying to solve them. And even if you are not able to write an optimum solution, there are people to help you do that, and maybe with the code. So that's not like a competition going on there. We are trying to build something, and DSA is not directly related to what you will do in open source. So, I am just to confirm, in what sense are you asking? Should I focus on development? Like,
Yeah,
uh,
I also feel like the sense is a little bit tilted towards the placement scenario and all of that.
yeah,
So is it like that?
You could unmute your mic and then ask the question. If you wish, you could write in the chat only.
I think left.
So
Okay.
Austin left.
Okay, so, any other questions?
Yeah, please unmute and ask.
So
I think we can end now.
I think we don't have more questions. So thanks a lot.
Sir, just one question. Sorry. Hello.
Yeah.
I'm not. Okay. So like, how good do we need to be in a particular tech stack to actually go for GSOC?
I don't think there is any particular metric that can be defined here on how good you have to be on a particular tech stack to go for GSOC. But you will get that idea like when you are looking into the project. Like when you are actually navigating through the project, the only skills that are required are that skills that are enough are that you are understanding what that code is doing, because you don't actually have to implement everything while looking into those small issues, right? But you definitely need to know what is the purpose of that code which is written there. So that kind of understanding you definitely need to have. Other than that, everything can be learned while contributing.
Yeah. So just to confirm, the first question, that how good you need to be in dev stack, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So as Shivan sir told, like you don't need to go to the extreme of the solution. You can have like collect the basic knowledge and then learn like good enough to start with, and then go along with the issues that you pick up. And if you, let's say, I'm giving a very like no, naive example, but let's say you are not sure what a map is, and the mentor or the code mentor says that it's better to use map here, and you're not completely aware, you can just search at that time, learn what a map is, and try to implement it, and again update your PR. So going by that approach, so this was like a very bad example for this, but something similar to this. Let's say, okay, I'll not give a complete example, but you got the point. I think that you don't need to know everything. Just you have good enough to start, and then based upon the reviews that you get, you can just keep update your code, and you will keep learning. Don't like as we told that the project, you can't understand the project entirely. You can also never understand their stack completely. So you don't need to know that. Just the part that you're working on is good enough.
One thing which I would like to add is there are some organizations which do take a round of discussion before selecting their students. So MeFOS is one of those organizations, and like for example, when I was contributing to an Android project, I had a discussion with Naman around some of the basic understandings of Android and what are some things that we are going to use in the project. So yeah, make sure that you know those kind of things, but it's not there in all of the organization. But it's always good to have that basic knowledge of all those things.
I have a
Yeah, go ahead.
Sir, we will be able to sort the projects depending on our tech stack, right?
Yeah. You can search for a tech stack and you'll get all the projects which have that tech stack labeled in the Google website.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
GSOC official website.
Any other questions? Anyone has?
Yeah. So Varun, did we also talk about outreachy for the female participants?
No, sir, we haven't talked about it yet.
Yeah.
No, sir, we have taken a different session for girls. In that, outreach was covered.
Okay.
All the female like programs.
Okay. Okay.
Also,
Like,
if any one of you feels like we should cover something else, feel free to say that out.
So I think I think we don't have any more questions. So thank you, Shivan sir and Manthan sir, for joining us, and your advices and your experience would help everyone, those who attended the session and those who are aspiring to become a student in the Google Summer of Code. Your experience would help them a lot, as that experienced me. And if talking about me only, I first of all got to know about GSOC when I attended the session when I was in the college. Shivan sir took that session, and after it, this session was the first time I got to know about something named as GSOC. I wasn't knowing anything about that before, but from that I got to know about it, and after these were one of the sessions only that helped me to be motivated and uh, be certified as a student in the Google Summer Code. So thank you, sir, for joining. I would like to add anything.
Nothing, like it was a great experience to join you guys and share our experiences, and I hope that we get the opportunity to send a lot of congratulations message to a lot of students this year.
Yes, sure, sir.
yeah. Thank you, sir, for joining. Manthan sir and Shivam.
Thanks a lot, sir.
Thank you.
Cool.
So we are now ending with the session. One more important announcement is that the Ask Me Anything session of the Open Code would be conducted at 11 p.m. So those who have any doubt regarding the events in an, Open Code or any of the projects, you may join at 11 p.m. in the Discord channel. So thank you, everyone. should now conclude.